have with us a very special guest and a gentleman who has inspired me in many ways, Bernard Giroux, who grew up to be a very good man. We're going to find out what route he took to become just that, and you'll also find that you are very, very intelligent, and I respect your opinion.
Thank you.
So you are a realtor, an assessor of sorts?
Appraiser.
Appraiser?
Yes.
What else do you do?
I've taught at the college level.
What have you taught?
I've taught real estate at Bristol Community College when it was so-called when it began. I've also founded a couple of corporate real estate organizations. One of them was called the National Association of Corporate Real Estate Executives, and then there was another one after that that was associated with one of the colleges in Georgia. I've written books.
Like what?
In real estate.
All real estate books?
All real estate books.
No novels?
No, I'm working on it.
Are you really?
Yes.
Well, no, that's fascinating because you've had a very structured history.
I have.
What kind of a novel are you writing?
It's an adventure story, a la James Bond type,
And
with a little political twist.
Very interesting. And can we assume that you are James Bond?
No.
We'll have to wait for that to be published, and we'll have you back.
Thanks.
In the meanwhile, you are very well known and respected for your intellect in a lot of local issues. What are some of them that are crucially important, Bernie?
The most important issue, I've been involved in two issues which are important to our area. One of them is political, and the other one is more practical. The political one involved the campaign for Donald Trump, and the practical one involves wind turbines. The reason I got involved with wind turbines is simple. For people who know the area, I happened to drive down to the end of Horseneck Road in Westport, where it joins up with Dartmouth, just south of the Bayside Restaurant at East Beach Road. And I happened to be looking at the ocean. I parked, and I was looking to the left of Gooseberry Neck, which sticks out there to the southwest, and I counted 13 windmills on the horizon. This was about 2 years ago now.
Really?
Yes. And I said to myself, I didn't even know that they had been built yet.
Here, wow, this is, when was this?
A couple of years ago.
Wow. How did that happen?
Well, when I saw that, I dug into it a little. And I found a letter to the editor to the Newport Daily News from a lawyer who was representing the Conservation Law Foundation. He was chastising the Wampanoags and the Newport Historical Society for complaining about the fact that these wind turbines would be spoiling the sea view from Newport. And he, in his letter, stated that all they're going to see out there are things that look like toothpicks. So I had read that before I saw what I saw looking out to the southwest of Gooseberry Neck, and that set me off.
They turned out to be not toothpicks, but huge trees, huh?
Yeah, huge trees reflecting the light. So I decided to look into it a little more, and got involved with people who are interested in the why are they there, and how they got there, and what can we do about it. So the first thing is, you have to understand that the waters off the states is in two sections. There's a certain distance from the shore which the state controls, and then after that it becomes federal water. So the states have a say in what goes on, as well as the feds. The feds mostly, and there's a group called, it's actually an organization called the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. Now, does that sound like a Stalinist bureau or not? And the BOEM mapped out the ocean floor, and they have it divided into squares. As of today, as we speak, 2 million acres south of Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard have been leased.
To whom?
12 wind developers, of whom only 2 are American. The remainder are Norwegian. There are American partners in some of them, but mostly they're Norwegian. And they're the ones that have been building the windmills off the shore here. Now, the windmills themselves are built by GE Vernova. If you go down to the harbor here in New Bedford, you'll see that they actually have an office there, and you can see all the windmill parts stacked along the shore. The problem with the wind turbines I found after I heard a recording that was made by an acoustic engineer from Brunswick, Maine, of the pile driving where the monopiles are being driven into the seabed for mounting the wind turbines on top.
Oh, really?
Right.
Now, I want you to describe what it sounded like when we come back. We are with Bernard Giroux, who is a well-respected appraiser in the South Coast area and beyond, and a very special guest who is talking about something that is near and dear to the hearts of everybody, but mostly here in New Bedford, Massachusetts, and on the South Coast.
More of this amazing discussion in a minute. But first, please like, follow, and share The Phil Show now. Thank you so much. Let me thank the good folks at iGreen Landscape, your one-stop solution for your residential and commercial property management. Whether it's snowing or whether you're mowing, let Team iGreen handle your landscape and hardscape year-round. From spring cleanups to commercial snow management, I recommend the good folks at iGreen Landscape. Call for your complimentary consultation today.
Welcome back. With us, we have Bernard Giroux, who is educating us on the realities of what's going on in terms of green energy. You were saying that the promises that were made were somewhat altered from the toothpicks that were supposed to dot the horizon to these Goliaths. What else happened because of these?
Well, what happened was I happened to come upon undersea recordings made by an acoustic engineer from Brunswick, Maine, whose name is Robert Rand. And since I was a Navy ASW pilot, ASW stands for Anti-Submarine Warfare, I flew the P-3 Orion, and that was a hunter and a maritime observer. And because of our hunting, we knew a great deal about subsea sound, subsurface sound in the ocean. So when I listened to Rand Acoustics recordings of the pile driving, here's what I found out. The pile driving noise levels average between 180 and 185 decibels.
What does that mean?
Very high. A Navy diver will not be permitted to dive if the sound levels underwater are 145 decibels or more. So at 180 to 185 decibels, you can just imagine what's happening to the cetaceans, which are whales, and the pinnipeds, which are dolphins and porpoises. That's what's going on.
Oh, wow.
Now, in theory, the developers and constructors use a bubble canopy, which is supposed to mask the pile driving sound around each turbine, but it doesn't really work very well. Rand took recordings, started at 5 kilometers out and worked his way in at different depths, and the noise is the same. It doesn't change no matter what they do for it. So,
is there a dispute going on?
There's all kinds of things happening on the side. This is basically an issue which is a lot bigger than just one person like myself. It's much larger. It involves the federal government, the state government. It involves private corporations. And I'm only really on the periphery of it, even though I'm trying to learn as much as I can about it.
What have you learned so far?
First of all, I spent 5 years as a consultant to the owners of Brayton Point Power Station between the years of 2018 and 2023.
It's in Somerset.
In Somerset. During that time, I learned about the production and transmission of electricity. And in that time period, I also read a bunch of studies that were relating to that very topic. That topic is a subject of study by not only people in the United States, but also in Europe and in Canada. Now, just as a little anecdote, Quebec gets all of its power from Quebec Hydro. All of their power is produced by dams. And just to give you an example of the difference in costs, the people in Montreal, which is a metro area of about 3 million people, which is almost twice the size of Boston, they pay 585% less for their electricity per kilowatt than the people in the Boston region do.
Because of?
Because of the expense of producing with
deliverance?
hydropower versus the way we get our power. Now, the United States is divided into 16 ISO districts, and the 6 New England states are in ISO-NE. They control all of the distribution of power coming from oil, gas, nuclear, coal, and other sources, and they distribute it throughout the 6 states. While I was at Brayton Point, I read 4 studies from ISO-NE. Each study said the same thing. They came to the same conclusion each year. Wind and solar will never replace the grid, number one. The second thing is the London School of Economics produced a study about 25 years ago, which came to the conclusion that wind will never replace the grid because it's too expensive. It is the most expensive method of producing electricity in the world. So what's going on out there, basically, there's a few other things you need to know about turbines. First of all, their shelf life is only 5 years. The second thing, no one has been able to answer this question, is if all of these turbines off Martha's Vineyard, Block Island, and Nantucket get connected, what will the final cost per kilowatt hour be to the consumer, you and I? And no one has been able to answer that question.
Why? That's the basic question. When you go into a restaurant and you see a hamburger and it doesn't have a price next to it, it has to. What are you going to pay?
They've never produced the number.
Never, huh?
Now, just to give you a contrast to that, when Quebec Hydro 30 years ago offered to hook up to the New England grid, they were offering us power at 10 cents a kilowatt. What do you think that would mean to us today?
Huge savings. We will be right back. Please don't go away. We're with Bernard Giroux, who is a very, very interesting gentleman that is talking about a very important issue, especially not only nationally and internationally, but to the people of the South Coast of Massachusetts. We'll be back.
More of this amazing discussion in a minute, but first, please like, follow, and share The Phil Show now. If you're ready to finally make your biggest dreams a reality, let my friend Jared Methia at Milestone Mortgage Solutions get you your next mortgage or your next home loan. Jared is a trusted local loan officer who works with some of the most reputable companies. Jared reminds me if you're a first-time home buyer or maybe you're looking to refinance. He says, go to him. And I, too, recommend Jared Methia, providing you with a stress-free experience. Call Jared today for a competitive rate, for quick approvals, and for one-of-a-kind personalized service. That's Jared Methia at Milestone Mortgage Solutions. You can now watch The Phil Show whenever you'd like. Like, follow, and share The Phil Show now. And catch us wherever you catch your favorite podcasts. Like, follow, and please share The Phil Show now with a friend. The Phil Show now.
Welcome back. Bernard Giroux is our special guest, and we're talking about the turbines and what turns out to be, why didn't anybody know about a lot of the turbines that are out there right now, Bertie?
Well, I think the other thing that people, I'm going to go back to the pile driving for a second. We had Robert Rand down here in October before the election as a guest for the Republican Town Committee in Dartmouth, and he gave a talk and explained all about this stuff and played some of those recordings for the audience. At 90 decibels, he practically drove us all out.
Oh, wow.
Now, we just told you that the average sound level is 180, 185 decibels, so that'll tell you how really loud it is. Now, as a Navy undersea hunter, you have to know about the ocean. Sound under the water travels at 6 times the speed that it does above the ocean. So where you and I are talking, our sound here is 6 times less than what would be moving through water.
The density.
Right. There are also channels in the ocean called SOFAR channels. Those are spelled capital SOFAR. If sound waves get into those SOFAR channels, they can travel for thousands of miles in the ocean without any interruption.
Interesting.
So not only are the sea mammals being affected and impacted by these things close by, but they potentially could be being affected all around the world by these things. Now,
does this have anything to do with the recent whale deaths?
Well, they deny it, but it's probably not true that they're denying it.
What does your hunch tell you, or your experience?
Well, if you listen to the fellows that know about undersea sound transmission, you're going to know that those levels of sound waves are actually, when a cetacean or a pinniped is under the water, they become translucent. The sound waves actually go right through their bodies and disturb their hearing and sonar. So even their internal organs are affected by this stuff. So if you see a whale beached, it may or may not be an entanglement, but more likely it is something that has happened because of what's happened to its body passing through the sound waves.
And for the fishing industry, what kind of an impact does this have?
Well, I've taken 2 scallopers fishing last fall, and we went off of Cuttyhunk to sit there and talk as well as fish. And they've told me that in order to catch their quota today out of New Bedford, they have to go as far as the Grand Banks. And down off of New Jersey and Virginia, it's practically speaking non-existent now. So it's an industry that's been directly affected, and yet other fishermen will also tell you. Now, there's a group called Green Oceans from Rhode Island that's been handling this, and there are also a couple of people that are local who've been working with the fishermen about these kinds of problems, and I'm not in touch with those groups.
You brought politics in.
I did.
With a brand new administration. How is this going to now, how do you see it overall affecting progress with more turbines or less, or how do you see it?
Well, an example would be that within the last 3 weeks, Shell Oil has pulled out of all of its East Coast commitments and all of its Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America commitments. So that's 2 major things. The chairman of...
What is the correlation?
Happened within the last month and a half.
Gotcha.
The chairman of Ørsted in Denmark was removed from his position. About a month and a half ago, they ran a largest auction for offshore wind that's ever been seen in Denmark, and the number of bidders that showed up was 0. Now, on a local level, this should interest everyone. I was asked in the fall of 2023 to appraise a parcel of land on the Fall River Harbor waterfront. It was a 750-foot bulkhead with 6 acres of land behind it, with 33 feet of water at the bulkhead, which is exceptional. And the fellow had just built a new landing platform for boats, and he had also built dolphins where they tie up against. Mm-hmm. And he was asked that fall by Vineyard Wind, the Norwegians, if they could use his land as a laydown spot during construction. So he said, we'll talk about it. He said they're very difficult to deal with, but he asked me to appraise the property and give him a rent. So I sent my report in, and in December he called me and he said, I'm going to have to be very polite here. He said to me, we dismissed the Norwegians. And I said, why did you do that? He said, it was very simple. They introduced us to their new Chinese partner. So I don't think most people know about that, but I'm telling you that that is what happened. So we give them subsidies and tax incentives, and they bring the Chinese in as partners.
Hold that thought as we will return with Bernard Giroux and a discussion that is taking place right now on the south coast of New Bedford, Massachusetts, and all the area. We'll return to the Phil Show now in just a moment.
More of this amazing discussion in a minute. But first, please like, follow, and share the Phil Show now. Thank you so much. Carefree Homes is an award-winning home improvement company. It's been family-owned and operated since 1978. For over 46 years of business and thousands of satisfied customers, this company is A+ rated. It's an accredited member of the Better Business Bureau. And listen to this, no payments until the project is completed. How's that? Financing options are available for roofing, siding, windows, doors, decks, you name it. CarefreeHomesCompany.com. Call for a free quote. 508-997-1111. CarefreeHomesCompany.com.
We're with Bernard Giroux. I call him Bernie, and it's an honor to have you here. But for people who are just watching, who are you?
Well, I've been around. I was born in Fall River. Don't hold that against me, since we're in New Bedford.
No, I think both cities agree.
So we were. I was raised locally, and then I went to college in New Hampshire. I got a bachelor's degree from St. Anselm's up there, who the current secretary for the president graduated from. And when I graduated, I had to do something because it was Vietnam era time, and I became a Navy flyer. And I was a Navy flyer for 8 years.
My goodness.
And when I got out of the Navy, I went to graduate school in Washington, D.C., and I got an advanced degree in real estate. And I spent 17 years after that in corporate real estate, where I worked for people like McDonald's, the A&P company, and I ended up as the executive vice president of Montgomery Ward Properties in Chicago, where I lived for 10 years. And then I came back to New England, and I've been self-employed since about 1991.
Wow, I'm impressed. I am. What part of life, let me reword this, are you happy with what life has shown you so far?
I would say that I am. There have been some interesting events in my life, but other than that, I'm very satisfied with my partner in life. We've been together for 33 years. I have 4 children, 3 girls and 1 boy, and I have grandchildren out there. So it's been a good life.
You know, you're like the song, it's the good life, right?
Right.
That we can be grateful for.
Right.
How did you become interested in what the turbines were doing to the coast and the seabed, the sea floor, the sea life?
Well, Before they plant the turbine, they're supposed to do a number of studies of the ocean floor, of the currents, of the varying temperature layers that there are beneath the surface, and what the currents are like all around the area. And what I did learn was, despite when you get into the paperwork on these things, that it's hundreds of pages long, so it's almost impossible for any one person to really track this effectively. And I know, and it's been admitted, that they haven't really done all of the tests that they should. And Robert Rand from Rand Acoustics is the guy that brought that fact out, that they really didn't understand what those sound waves were going to do to those mammals. So that's the one big area that I'm worried about. And the other thing is the age life of the turbines themselves. You've already had a couple of them with accidents out there, and they've lost their parts of their spinners. And then you had that one off Nantucket that lost a blade, and it created real havoc in the ocean. The other thing most people don't know is that the turbines themselves are filled with hazardous materials.
Such as?
Oil. But it's not the kind of oil that you and I understand would be lubricating the motors that we have in our automobiles. It's completely different.
And if it leaks out?
It leaks out, it contaminates the sea.
We'll be right back in a moment. As you can see, this discussion is very important. Bernard Giroux is our guest, and we will return.
Cottage Street Motors in New Bedford has been a vital business in the area. And part of the reason people love Cottage Street Motors is because they are part of the community. They keep things simple. On the car lot, they do things the old-fashioned way. And if you need auto financing, no sweat. They are their own bank. They have been serving the area for decades. I trust them, and I hope you will too. Or at least give them a call. Check things out at Cottage Street Motors.
Welcome back as we continue our discussion with Bernie Giroux about what's going on with some of the turbines, because there's a lot more that we could talk about. But here on the South Coast, if you had to point to one issue that has to be addressed, what would that issue be?
There are two things. One is, will the turbines ever be connected and produce electricity based on what they claim? That's one. The second thing is, I believe that people should be looking at alternates right now, alternative forms of energy. Robert Rand has said this. The people that I've discussed this who know a great deal about it have said the same thing. There's a fellow named Mike Armenia who's a retired Navy captain, and he was a nuclear engineer in the Navy, and he has run around giving talks to different groups around the area. And if you listen to his talk, you're going to understand what climate change is all about and what a fraud it is. And the second thing is, the alternatives are really what we need to study. And the alternatives to wind turbines are oil, gas, and nuclear. And if we started using natural gas to produce our electricity right now, we would cut our greenhouse gas emissions by 1/2.
That's amazing.
The second thing is this. Nuclear has come to a point where it is safe. A small modular nuclear reactor is what I'm talking about. They can produce up to 300 megawatts of power. Now, Brayton Point, when it was fully operational, produced 1,365 megawatts of power.
Interesting.
Okay?
That's very interesting. Mm-hmm.
So you could put 4 small modular reactors on Brayton Point, and you would produce as much power as Brayton Point produced, which basically fed 1 million households.
Are these mini?
They're very small. They can be the size of a truck. They are charged with thorium. It is not radioactive material. It is a salt. It's a very complex process. The other thing that they do is they can actually use the material that came off of the original nuclear reactors and is stored as waste and burn it, so that it is turned around and it is now producing power where it's just sat as a stored element. But the small modular reactors are really an answer. They're a quick answer. We've been producing them for a while, and I believe it was during the Obama administration, Hillary Clinton turned around and she gave away the patents to the Chinese for the thorium reactors.
Oh, unbelievable.
So that's part of the political problem.
A lot of stuff has been given away or misused.
Right.
Perhaps that's a good transition point for us to invite you to come back.
Love to.
And it would be our honor. But lastly, is there something I didn't ask that is important to make sure that those viewing this understand the critical importance?
I think people have to educate themselves. The material is out there so that you can educate yourself. And the problem is it's a detailed problem, so you've got to get into it and understand what the terms are, and there are sources for you to be able to do that.
There's an old saying, if you don't fall in love with the struggle, you won't ever beat it. What a wonderful, inspiring guest you have been. Thank you
very much.
Bernard Giroux, ladies and gentlemen, it's been an honor, and thank you very much for looking into the Phil Show now. Until next time, thank you so very much.